What's up, guys? My name is JDCook5 and welcome to the review of the Bournemouth versus Chelsea game. Before we do get into this particular video, please like, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't done so already. And this is a positive review. This is the review that I would like to be making. Chelsea come victorious against Bournemouth. They travelled to the Vitality Stadium and 1-0 victory thanks to the efforts of Christopher Nkunku in the dying minutes of this particular fixture. What can I say? Probably the most weirdest game I could watch in some degree, with Anthony Taylor handing out the yellow cards left, right and centre, making a record of, I'm pretty sure, 14 yellow cards, which is a stat that I never thought I'd be saying, put it that way. The game itself was a very strange game, it has to be said. Chelsea lined up a little bit differently compared to what we used to. I'll go into that in a bit further in terms of my match ratings. But it was a bit of a strange lineup. Obviously, Disasi on the right-hand side. Looking at the squad in the middle, obviously Renato Vega making a full Premier League debut in the midfield. And it was interesting to say the least. Neto got a start on the left-hand side, which I don't particularly agree with, for the simple fact that he just didn't seem to be that good against Crystal Palace, so I didn't really think he was worthy of a start. Nevertheless, it changed around in the second half, it has to be said. Obviously, the penalty in the first half for Bournemouth was the biggest talking point. Before that, hitting the bar as well, Tavernier with a very, very valiant effort, and unfortunately only hitting the crossbar. But with the penalty, it was a very poor mistake from the Chelsea defence, it has to be said. Fofana put Sanchez in a very poor position. In all fairness, it is a penalty. It's soft to a degree because he's run at him, but at the same time, it's a clear penalty in some aspects because he has stuck a foot out, and it's a hard one to judge. But realistically, if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be saying it's a penalty as fans. Unbelievable save from Robert Sanchez, my add. 2 penalty saves now for Chelsea. Obviously, saved one at Old Trafford as well. He looked absolutely spot on today, Robert Sanchez, and hats off, because I'm not a fan whatsoever. He's had his critics, including myself, but he played really, really well, and probably the only reason why Chelsea have won this particular fixture. I know he hasn't scored the goal himself, but realistically, when you weigh up the game and the chances that Bournemouth did have, I mean, the stats are very, very interesting, and it's a very mixed bag, it has to be said. 33% possession for Bournemouth, but they recorded 19 shots on goal. 67% possession for Chelsea, but only 10 shots recorded on goal, with a 3 on target and 7 on target for Bournemouth. Much more passes from Chelsea's perspective, obviously, hence the possession kind of being so much superior compared to Bournemouth. 572 compared to 275 for Bournemouth. So it's a very mixed bag in terms of the actual stats itself. Robert Sanchez making 7 saves compared to Travers only having to make the 2. Bournemouth looked pretty set. They had a game plan and they was executing it very well. They looked dangerous in attack. They knew what they wanted to do. They got it wide. They used the kind of width in some aspects and being able to kind of drive into the defence. The defence was very weak up into the point where actual Tosin Adebayo did replace Disasi, and the shape sort of changed and so on, and we kind of flowed as a team. Disasi isn't a right back. I've always said it. I was really, really kind of not looking forward to him playing on the right hand side, knowing that was going to be the case, obviously, with Malo Gusto and Reece James out. And at the same time, it was nice to see Tosin being able to kind of fulfill that sort of position, and he actually did very well, it has to be said. Kind of structured the defence a bit more, was really, really sharp in terms of intercepting the ball and being able to shift it forward. I wouldn't say we were the quickest in terms of going forward, and I would like a bit more of a direct route when it comes to actually kind of attacking and getting more shots off. It feels like sometimes we have to pass it into the back of the net, and that's never should be the case, but that felt like it was in some way today. Some people are a bit scared to have a shot as in some way. But a very, very well worked goal in terms of being able to have that on the left hand side, where Sancho has seen the run from Christopher Nkunku, a direct ball to foot, good kind of movement, good strength on the ball. He's been able to get himself a good position. The defender doesn't deal with it whatsoever, and he's taken full advantage of that and made it 1-0. At least we've kept a clean sheet. That's the first clean sheet we've made in 18 away matches. We've been very poor on the road in terms of the defensive awareness and so on, and just our whole defensive issue. So I'm glad on that sort of way we have kept the clean sheet, but at the same time, it doesn't mask what actually did happen in the particular fixture, and realistically, we should be saying it's 1-0 Bournemouth or 0-0. Not to put a downer on things, and not to be negative in any manner, because it's a massive 3 points. It's really, really huge for us and so on. but at the same time, there still are things that need to be worked on to be able to go forward and kill these sort of games off, not be struggling against Bournemouth. Bournemouth are a very well-worked side, and there's no disrespect to them as a side whatsoever, because, again, they set out a plan and it worked for them, and they played very well. They played very well, and Bournemouth are definitely excelling as a side, even though they've lost Dom Solanke up top, so hats off to them in that regard. But let's get straight into the actual lineup itself, and we'll talk about every player that did play for Chelsea in the match ratings. This was the lineup for the particular fixture before we do get into each and individual rating. Sanchez in goal, Cucurella on the left-hand side, Disasi on the right with Fofana and Colwill as a centre-back pairing. Vega coming into the middle, partnering with Moises Caicedo with an attacking options of Neto on the left-hand side, Noni Madueke on the right, Palmer in the middle with Nicholas Jackson up top. Starting with Robert Sanchez, as I noted, in my opinion, man of the match. Absolutely phenomenal performance. It can't take away from Jadon Sanchez's efforts whatsoever, because he had a great game coming on in the second half, replacing Pedro Neto. But at the same time, hats off to Robert Sanchez, because he's really proven a lot of people wrong, and if he's able to keep this up at a consistent level, then we'll have a good goalkeeper between the sticks. Marc Cucurella, 6.6 rating for myself. Just didn't feel like it was really at the races to a degree. I felt like he was always losing his man. He had made some good attacking runs, and in the inverted role, he didn't look as poor. But at the same time, there's so many points where he would lose out on the left-hand side. Looked a bit reckless and was probably lucky to stay on the pitch, being on a yellow previously, obviously. Obviously, that was such poor refereeing, but he has to be careful in that sort of situation. So only a 6.6 rating. Disasi, 5.0, completely out of his depth. The less said, probably the better, and we'll move on from there. Fofana and Colwill with the centre-back pairing. Cole an 8.0. That man has some passion, it has to be said. Really wanted to be able to kind of do well for his side today, and just been able to kind of push on further. And he had some passion when he was blocking a few tackles, and he got some decent kind of blocks in from the shots, and I just felt like he was an all-round good player, it has to be said. So an 8.0 rating for myself. For Colwill, Fofana, 6.5 rating in my opinion. I thought he was really good in the second half, poor in the first half, obviously leading up to the penalty. Seemed a bit more comfortable in the second half and seemed a little bit more relaxed, but I wouldn't say it was much of a special kind of performance from himself. It has to be noted, he's definitely had better days in a Chelsea shirt, but a respectable 6.5 rating. Renato Vega making his full Premier League debut, a 7.5 rating for myself, playing in the midfield, a very versatile player, it has to be said, and a phenomenal performance from Renato, and a lot of passion showed from him, especially in them celebrations. That was the yellow card that was worth it. Really good, controlled the middle, made the runs that was needed, looked a little bit out of his depth in some points, but in others he really made up for it, so I can't be harsh on his game whatsoever. So a 7.5 rating for myself for Renato Vega. Again, a little bit like Fofana, Caicedo had a bit of a poor first half, but really picked it up in the second half. I'd be respectful on the 7.2 rating for the simple fact that I thought he was really pivotal, and at times where he was able to intercept the ball and being able to push forward, made sure that he was able to get a foot in and be strong in the tackle at the same time, and I thought he was solid in the second half, and that's what Moises can do, and I do believe he is a good midfielder. It's just when he can turn the style on. Pedro Neto on the left-hand side, completely isolated. It's going to take time for Pedro Neto to get going, in my opinion. Didn't really look any sort of player today, and I felt like he just looked completely out of his depth. I don't want to be too harsh on him, because he obviously is new to the club and so on, and he's got some time, and he's got a lot of players around him that are there going to pressurise him at the same time. So I'd only give a 5.0 rating for Neto. Noni Madueke, 6.0. Made some good runs, had some good moments, but too greedy in the first half. There was a point where he could have laid it off to Nicholas Jackson, and he just didn't. And unfortunately, when he did lay it off, Nicholas Jackson was offside at that point in time. I had to say, had a few good moments, but I wouldn't say it's much anything special based off of the recent performances of Noni, so we do need to see more in that regard, but only a 6.0 rating. Cole Palmer, 6.5 rating for myself. Looked very isolated on the right hand side when the shape did change when Jadon Sancho came on. I felt like he's very wasted on a wing, and I don't believe he's a winger whatsoever. He just looks so dead on the ball. When he's in the middle, he looks like he's able to control the game a bit more and being able to kind of offload it to the sides that he wants to and make them more a bit of a direct play. And that just really wasn't the case for Cole Palmer today, as he was on on the right-hand side for a lot of the game. And finally, Nicholas Jackson at 6.0 made some good runs. Should have scored in all fairness, but it wasn't to be for Nicholas Jackson today. Can't really be too harsh about his game because the goalkeeper did have a very good game, but at the same time, he didn't really get the service as much. Second half, he kind of dropped off, and that was for the reasoning of just needed something in this game, and that's where I move on to the substitutions. Tosin Adebayo, obviously he played against Servette, and we haven't really seen much of Tosin in all fairness, and I don't know an awful lot. I know he had a fairly good season at Fulham, coming back from a big injury and had a good finish to his season, but I'm not really too much of aware of what sort of player he is. Obviously coming from the youth setup from City, Enzo Maresca knows all about him, but he had a very good game, looked really, really solid, and I can't be harsh on his performance whatsoever. I know he's only played the 45, and you probably could talk about more in terms of other players around him, but I thought he was really good, played half an hour or so in the particular game, and I'd have to say a fair 7.5 rating for Tosin Adebayo. And then we had a falsy substitution for Jadon Sancho coming on for Pedro Neto at the start of the half. Really, really solid, looked completely fine in the setup. You know he's been training hard, you know he's hungry, and that definitely showed on the pitch today. Gave us that little bit more of an edge compared to what Neto gave us in the first half, so it was interesting to see, and I feel like if he can compete performances like that, then we've definitely got some competition on our hands in terms of that particular roles. A brilliant assist to be able to pick the ball out and kind of give it to Nkunku, so I was really happy with that. And again, a really, really top performance. I'd have to say it's just off of Robert Sanchez's performance. I'd give an 8.5 for Jadon Sancho. João Felix didn't really get into the game, had a moment where he kind of had a really good touch into the box and couldn't really lay it off to Cole Palmer. There's more to come from João. Obviously, he scored against Wolves when he did come on, and he hasn't really shown that once he has come on as a substitute against Palace and Bournemouth, but at the same time there's time for João and he's got to adjust and so on, but I do believe he is a top player. Christopher Nkunku came on for Nicholas Jackson with 10 minutes left to spare. An unbelievable super sub, and again proving the doubters wrong in terms of he needs to be starting. He really does. I feel like he's a starter. In all fairness, next game against West Ham, I would go for Sancho, Palmer and Nkunku, and then change it from there if you need to, but we've got the subs in that way. It's so hard for competition, but at the same time you have to be harsh. Obviously replacing Pedro Neto at 45, you kind of question, is that going to kind of hinder his improvement, shall we say? But you need performances and we need victories. At the end of the day, in the smaller games that we have got available, we need to be picking up 3 points. There's no excuse on why we shouldn't. And when we do play the bigger teams, that's when it's going to be harder to pick up the points. So we need to be picking up points against these. Respectful for Bournemouth because they had a phenomenal game, I thought, and they should have won it in all fairness. I really do believe that. But we came away with the win, and that is the main thing. We've got a clean sheet. We've done what we needed to do, and a victory for Chelsea on the road. That is it for this particular video. I'm pretty sure the next fixture that we do have played will be, I'm saying West Ham on the Saturday. I might be mistaken. I don't think there's any Europa Conference League as of yet, so I'm pretty sure it is against West Ham United and a 12:30 kickoff where Chelsea visit the London Stadium. But until then, I'll be doing a preview on the Friday, so stay tuned for that particular video. But that is it for now. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification button so you never miss a video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and until next time, cheers.